Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marisol Nichols Podcast. We are back again with the one, the only, the legend, Sheriff Chris Swanson. Sheriff, welcome back to the show.
Best. You cannot come on your show in a bad mood. Just make everybody so grateful to be here and just who you are. You're electric.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So right back at you.
Yeah, I hear you.
Right back at you.
Nuclear.
So you're here today. We've heard all about the ghost team. I want to hear, there's a couple cases that you're like, Marisol, I can't wait to tell you about this. You have to hear about this. So there's somebody named Peter.
Yes.
Right? Who's from what I understand, a very, very, very bad individual that you and your team have recently taken off the streets.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through that? Again, my audience, teachers, kids, teenagers, parents out there, who this person is, who this individual is, how you came across them. Walk us through that whole thing.
Well, you bring up a great point with your audience.
Yeah.
There's teachers out there that
Yes.
we know by definition they oversee young, vulnerable, innocent people.
Yeah.
That's what allowed this case to come to my attention, is because it was a nurse that picked up on it.
Oh, amazing. That's
Yes.
fantastic.
So anybody who's in a position of influence over somebody else that could be vulnerable,
Yeah.
you need to listen how this thing starts, because you could be the trigger that opens up this whole thing to bring someone to justice and save a victim.
Exactly. In fact, I remember a few years, actually a little while back now, where the training was just beginning for emergency personnel in emergency rooms, because these victims were coming into emergency rooms and seeing doctors and nurses, but the doctors and nurses didn't know what to look for. So then they got trained up, and now there's a whole training, and then they can report it. So I love that this was reported through a nurse.
Well,
Was it a school nurse?
It's crazy when you talk, because for somebody who is, quote, a Hollywood actress, you know all about this industry. It's amazing, because what you're talking about is SANE nurses,
Yeah.
sexual assault nurses
Yeah.
that are in emergency rooms, because you're right, for decades and
There was
decades,
nothing.
they would come in and try to tell the story, and these victims would be accused of why'd you put yourself in that situation in the first place? They didn't see cues that were being kind of teed up by the victims, where all you need to do is ask one additional question, and they would have told you.
Right. And then turning the victims back over to their trafficker.
That many times they're right there in the room with them.
Right.
You're just on top of it, so you're impressive. But that's how it started.
Okay.
A SANE nurse. The victim was noticed by the parents to have a psychological, emotional transition within a day. Like something wasn't right.
Okay.
And they talked to her and they said, "What's wrong?" She didn't respond. They thought, parents, yes, good family.
Okay.
And they said, "We're going to take you to the hospital, Hurley Hospital." And they just said, knew something was drastically wrong from the day before.
Wow.
They went to the hospital, and the SANE nurse was there, because there's obviously a questionnaire, and it's an algorithm. If this happens, then go down to this level. If it doesn't happen, go up to this level. Well, this algorithm pointed that she was sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
And as soon as that happens, and that's why Ghost, I'm so proud of it, because in the protocol of the hospital, certainly in my area, when it hits that level of possible sexual assault, Ghost is part of that algorithm.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
It's beautiful.
And for the audience that hasn't listened to a previous episode,
It should have.
GHOST stands for Genesee
Human Oppression Strike Team.
Oppression Strike Team. And that is the team that was created by Sheriff Swanson.
May of 2018.
And that team is a just force to be reckoned with. So I love that you are automatically a part of that. Like they know,
Correct.
Oh, great, let's call Ghost.
That's right. And that branding, which is on the back of your hoodie right now,
Yes, for those of you that are watching, I have a Ghost sweatshirt on that I'm so proud
You've
to be
earned it.
wearing. Thank you.
and
for
then
that.
some.
Thank you.
But if you look at that Ghost emblem and the Ghost wording, it just happens to be on a Nike hoodie. I don't need to tell people what that stands for.
Right.
This is a swoosh. It doesn't have anything to do with tennis shoes. But you know it's on tennis shoes, it's on gear.
Yeah.
That's what Ghost is. I want Ghost to be the brand
Yeah.
of human trafficking enforcement.
Right.
The victim goes to the hospital, the SANE nurse gets involved, we get called in, we have a 24-hour Ghost detective on call.
Good. And how, can
Wherever.
you say the age of the victim?
I will. What was stunning about it is all that the victim did to get into this position where she couldn't turn away anymore. when we did the interview at the hospital, we realized quickly that the information on her phone was critical. So we got her phone and we downloaded it. There's what's called a forensic download. And so forensic means criminal. So a forensic pathologist is a criminal pathologist.
Okay.
A forensic interview is a criminal interview. This is a forensic download. So now we take the data, we can use it in a criminal case.
Right.
So I have people trained that take the phones and we download the data to capture the information, whether it's phones or text or pictures or videos. And so when it does go to court, nobody can take that and use it against us or say, well, you can't use that evidence because it wasn't taken properly.
Got it.
So I have the forensic download, and it shows that this victim, 3 weeks ago, from the time that we actually got her in the hospital, got a direct message on Instagram from Peter Pajic. Peter Pajic was 28 years old. He is from Broward County, Florida. He works at a community college as a security guard, and at night works at a restaurant. And he had a network of victims that he would send DMs to based on how he would pick up their emojis. Sad face, bad day, is anybody out there? And he would pick that up. He was so good that that's what he would search for, is these types of emojis.
And that, by the way, to this particular audience, that's just a warning to you if you happen to be vulnerable, teenager, in your 20s, kid, whatever, or parents. Those are the emojis that these predators are looking for, because he ain't the only one.
That's right.
The sad face, the I'm alone, I'm having a bad day, my parents hate me, or life sucks, or anything like that. Those are the things these predators are looking for. So please continue.
You know how we use bait to get the predator? That's the bait they're looking for to find their victims.
Right.
And that's what he did. He sent her a DM, and they started a communication real quick. This is what we call grooming. Right. And imagine having a wide range of options as a predator, and whatever the victim says, you got an answer for. You got a solution. So they're trying to find out, what is the need and how do I fill it? And they're just going through, and they've got 9, 10, 12 of these conversations going on simultaneous, and they're trying to figure out which one can they go to quickest.
Right.
And in this case, it was so wicked fast that within 3 weeks, he's flying from Fort Lauderdale Hollywood Airport direct to Detroit Metro, rents a car, drives up 75, comes to Genesee County, rents a hotel at the Baymont Inn, goes to a church at midnight that night and convinces this 12-year-old little girl to jump out of her window to meet him in the parking lot at midnight, to take her to this hotel for 4 hours. Not only rape her, but monetize the entire incident.
Meaning film.
Stills and videos. Drops her back off at the same parking lot, and he's in Michigan for 33 more hours before he's wheels up. He was actually in the state when she was already at the hospital, but by the time we identified who he was, 5 days, 2 more days to locate him in Broward, he'd already been to Washington and Oregon and back.
Wow.
Did the same thing there, 2 more victims. I sent a team down here to Fort Lauderdale, and we worked with Broward County Sheriff's Office and Hollywood PD, and we identified where his house was, and then he had like a little turd house that he was living in outside of his mom's, control. And one of our detectives, Kennemer, it was just a phenomenal police work, because we know what kind of cars he drives, we know, and they were going down a 5-lane road right in the middle of Pompano, and they saw a vehicle, and he says, there he is. That's how good these detectives are.
Okay, so hold on, what's Pompano? I don't know.
It's a city in Florida, Pompano.
Oh, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Yep, right through Pompano, right to Broward County, and just a little bit east of Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
Whipped around. By that time, he had pulled into a bank, and we worked with the local PD to get there, because I don't have jurisdiction in Florida, but working with an agency, we do.
Okay.
So we get there, we arrest him, and he's there to open up another bank account, a private bank account. So all the money that he gets from his mother, she doesn't know that he's using it to buy airline tickets to go rape these kids around the country. And that's what he was there for. So we hooked him up, arrested him, took him back. We did an interview, confessed to the whole thing. And this network that he was doing, this I would call this criminal operation, he was never going to stop, ever.
No.
And we can't bring somebody back from one state to the next because there's what's called extradition laws. So what we try to do is we try to have them waive extradition. Otherwise, it can take up to 6 months to get him to the courts here, wherever the state is, but it just happened to be Florida, for him to fight extradition. And then the courts say, okay, you are a property of Michigan. We're going to send you back. He waived that.
So let's go back. So you get the guy, you and your team are working now with another team in Florida. You get the guy, but you have to go through extradition to get him to Michigan, or no?
Right. Yeah.
You do.
Any state, when you cross state lines, you operate under their laws.
Right.
So my team from Michigan, which has no jurisdiction, which means we have no authority in Florida, we have to go through their law, which is extradition law.
Okay.
And if he fights extradition, bringing it back, then it could take up to 6 months for the courts to say, you're going back to Michigan.
So why wouldn't he fight it?
Because it's dead time if that happens, meaning that whatever time he spends in jail, because there's no bond if you fight extradition, you're just stuck.
Oh, okay.
It's a great leverage that we use to say, you know what, you could either come back to Michigan now and start this process, or wait 6, 10, 12 months, and you're just sitting there dead time.
In jail.
In jail. Then they're going to say is, I'll waive extradition.
I get it.
Is what Peter Pajic did.
Okay.
So we hook him up, we take him to the airport, and we fly back. And when we land, when I say we, my office, I was there at the Detroit Metro Airport greeting him off the plane.
I think there's footage of this.
Fabulous footage.
We're going to show that here, because if for those of you that are listening to this, if you get a chance, go on YouTube, because we show it there as well, and we're going to show this footage so you can see, first of all, who this creep is, but second of all, you can see Sheriff Swanson greeting him, saying, welcome to Michigan.
But it goes back to when we did the episode prior to this about building that rapport.
Yeah.
You know, part of me going there was to establish to him that this is not a small-time crime, that you're in custody of another sheriff. Do you understand that? So I walk up to him and I put my hand on his shoulder, and I just grab him enough to know that I'm there.
Yeah.
And I look him in the eye and ask him some questions, and you can refer to the video for that.
Great.
We put him in the back of the patrol car, and he comes back here, and the case has now been adjudicated. We dumped the phone, and we found all the child porn that was on there. So he just pled to a federal charge, 40 years minimum, not including the state charges that he's going to have to plead to, which are going to be the rape charges, that 12-year-old. So Peter Pajic is done for life.
Right.
But what kills me is that the 7 to 10 days that we did not find him, 2 more victims were victimized. And how many more were victimized before? That's why a platform like yours is so important, because many times victims hold these stories for years before they tell anybody.
First of all, thank you for sharing that incredible story. Is this the guy that you showed me a picture of?
No,
That's a different guy. Okay, so we'll get to that. This guy.
That's awful.
Yeah, that one's.
That's Michael Barajas.
Okay, so we'll do Michael Barajas in a second, but because I need a second to breathe with Peter over here. So the other 2 victims that he was able to rape within those 7 to 10 days, were they made aware that they caught this guy, that he was going to stand trial? Did they jump in on the case, or how does that work?
This is why the power of media is so important to somebody like me. So when I did the Peter Pajic story, I knew that if I did a national platform, it would get attention. And so I specifically named the areas of Washington State and Oregon that he went to.
Right.
But I didn't know, because he didn't know who they were. He just had them on his phone, and we didn't have the information yet.
Okay.
It was one of those victims that came forward, and when she came forward, the Washington Sheriff's Office from there contacted us, and we were able to work that case with the FBI, because it's multiple states. Okay. So he probably will never go there. That case will always be open, because he's going to be locked up in federal and then state prison.
Okay.
But it'll always be out there. And that happens sometimes too with serial killers.
Yeah.
Is they'll plea, or they'll get convicted of a killer crime in one state, but the other ones always have it pending. So in case something ever happens, an appeal, something crazy, you always have something in the back.
Okay.
You don't ever dismiss a case on something like that. And that's what we did with Peter. So he still has 2 heavy cases pending over there on the West Coast.
Okay.
But he's never going to go there because he'll be in prison for 250 years.
Phenomenal. Good. And then how's the 12-year-old?
That's what we call aftercare.
Yeah.
And you've seen it, and I've seen it. You know, human trafficking, that I keep talking algorithm, it is education and awareness, which is what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Then it's enforcement. And then that final part is aftercare.
Right.
And that is trying to put people's broken lives together.
Right.
Most of the time it happens, but there's still scarring.
Yeah.
But it's the ones that you can't put back together that are truly the most devastating.
Okay.
She's doing well.
Okay.
We have not had any more contact with her because now she's got the family circle, the friend circle.
Good.
But she's not in an aftercare facility like others.
Yeah, but she's got family.
better, yes.
Thank goodness. She was so lucky.
12 years old.
I mean, that's going to sound horrible. She is so lucky, first of all, that I can't believe he dropped her back off. Mm-hmm. Because I'm sure there's cases where the girls do not get dropped back off at home.
You want to know what the most disturbing, and it's not graphic sexually, but there's a most disturbing part of the whole case. And it's the surveillance footage of the hallway of the hotel where she walks into his room and the door closes.
Just that image. Oh, that poor girl. You know, I say it all the time, but I feel like if it comes from law enforcement, it has more weight. Can you know, are there any other warnings that we haven't already talked about, but that young girls, parents, teachers can look out for, can protect themselves? I'm always screaming from, you know, the rafters about social media and DMs and all of that, but coming from you, it might help. Is there any other, you know, if you were to describe this guy in writing, what are the kind of things that predators like him say to victims to get them to meet up?
Think of how we build a rapport to get a confession.
Yeah.
They build a rapport to find a victim. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's how sextortion starts. Mm-hmm. And if there's a message that I want your viewers and listeners to hear, is human trafficking is the monetizing of underage and people that are not compliant with sex. It's not just younger people.
Right.
You know, it's 34-year-olds that are being sold for sex.
Right.
And, you know, people call it, you know, prostitution. It's the oldest, you know, profession. That's crap. Because people don't grow up thinking, you know what, when I get big, I can't wait to sell myself for $20 40 times a day.
Right.
And there is prostitution that's many times drug driven, but a lot of these traffickers, they move these individuals through different cities and states because that is their asset. But sextortion in the last 5 years, where people have been caught into a trap where they send a video or a photo of them either masturbating or something vulnerable, and immediately that rapport that they built thinking that they're friends or soon to be lovers is now a vicious, evil trap where they're going to exploit you for money. And I've seen so many cases where they will take their lives because the humiliation and the fear of somebody finding out. Sextortion is something that has to be addressed. So if I could wrap that all up, when we, you know, think about predators, we think of the creepy white van.
Right.
This is the creepy white van. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the key, the door. This is the opening to a large part of the evil that we see in this world. Yep. Whether it's dope, human trafficking, sextortion, threats, fraud, it's online presence. And there are people that are just as focused, like we are right now, on evil as we are trying to combat it.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for saying that. I want to add one thing, which is, you know, because a lot of what I remember when I was a teenager, I knew best. Dumb adults, they don't know anything. My parents don't know anything. They're ridiculous. Come on, they're paranoid. What I think I'd like my audience to understand with what you were saying and with this guy on Instagram and how he used social media is with AI now, it's a whole different world. So you'll have a kid or a teenager or whatever texting with someone, let's say DM. Well, that person can have a fake profile, a fake picture of themselves, a fake even video of themselves, and you can become anyone anonymously online. And I'm telling you, and you can back me up on this, the bad guys are on top of that technology. How can I exploit it? How can I use it? What's the latest thing that I can use to get me in touch with kids? So I wanted to say that warning out there when you
absolutely
agree with that. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for putting that guy behind bars. And thank you for saving all the future victims that would no longer ever be victims because of the work that you and your ghost team do.
We won't quit.
Thank you.
Are you Peter Pajic? Are you Peter? Is your date of birth 11/2/99?
11/3.
11/3/99? All right. My name is Sheriff Chris Swanson. You're in custody by the Genesee County Sheriff's Office. Do you understand that?
I do.
He also, from then till now, flew to Washington State and assaulted a 16-year-old, and then went from Washington to Oregon and assaulted a 14-year-old.
An alleged serial sexual predator charged with 9 felony counts in Michigan, authorities are working to determine if there are even more victims.
We're going to take you to this police car. We're going to put you in the back. We're going to transport you to Flint, Michigan. Do you understand that?
I do understand.
Let's go. If we'd not arrested them, it would continue to go and more people would have been assaulted.
Thank you for listening to the Marisol Nichols Podcast, and please do not forget to click like and subscribe. And a big shout out to WD Hahn for our theme song, Something's Gotta Change. See you next time.